Hello out there to all 4 of my YouTube subscribers, my poor, tortured YouTube audience that continues to watch my videos, and I don't know why. Yes, again, I'm sorry for the video quality and everything. I have infamously terrible quality videos. I don't know why you continue to watch them. I tried to release a video just recently, probably about like 10 minutes ago, something like that. And it was a lesson that I learned, and I wanted to share it and crystallize it in my mind before I forgot it. But it ended up being some crazy rant at 4 in the morning. So I wanted to try to clarify what I meant by it. And hopefully you haven't seen the other video, so you won't even know what I'm talking about, so that'll be good, because hopefully I can get this video up to replace the other video that I just put up, and it'll be a little bit better. I was talking with my cousins last night, and we literally talked until like 4 in the morning. My cousins are professional wrestlers, and they've taught me a great deal about life. Like, you should make a splash with whoever that you're trying to meet. If you can't go for good, then go for bad. And that seems really, really odd. A lot of times we want to just shake somebody's hand the same way that everybody else does, and we want to go through life in a way and kind of tiptoe through it so that we're not bothering any given people. But at the same time, there's lots of fun people, and we enjoy people who disrupt life a little bit. Which may seem weird, but literally we do. Whenever we go up to somebody at the checkout counter at the local Shop and Save or whatever you guys have in your area, whenever we go up to the checkout counter and we say something besides, hi, how's the weather, that sort of stuff, and we take that chance and get a more intimate, deeper connection. That's whenever a relationship starts. That's whenever you start really making a difference in other people's lives. Whenever you tiptoe through life, you can't do any good or any bad. And yes, you do avoid the bad, but there's not that much bad that can be done. You just don't have a high chance of vocalizing something that's going to do something that's that bad. So whenever you tiptoe around, there's just not that big of a chance that you can actually do something that's so bad that it's pretty much irreparable what you have done. So make a splash. And what this does is like if you go into a job interview and you just can't make a positive impact. You try your best that you can, but you just don't get a reaction out of your job interviewer. You just might take the chance to rip a fart or something like that. I know it sounds stupid, but if you make a splash, they will remember you, and at least they'll remember you. And they'll say, well, what about fart guy? What about him for the job? And they're like, well, he farted, and that was rude. But they'll remember you, and they'll say, well, what else did he do? He said this, and he said that, and that seems like he's a pretty good candidate for our position. And it works in every way. If you can't make a good impression on the person that you're talking to, you should try to make a negative impression, because whatever emotional impact you make, they will remember you, and maybe you can turn it around later. I can't tell you how many women that I've dated in my life, because I knew that I didn't have a chance with them whenever I first met them, and so I just decided to make a negative impact, and I just decided to have fun or something like that, and it turned out to be the detriment of other people, even if that wasn't my intention in the first place. I just had fun, and so they knew me as like an asshole or something like that. But they remembered me, and that was the important part. So I was able to talk to them and turn the feeling around. They're like, why are you such a dick? And I'm just like, and then I sit down and talk to them, and they're like, well, you're actually a nice guy. And then everything went from there. Those types of things. So I've learned a lot from my cousin, but my cousins, the professional wrestlers, I learned a ton from them, and everything. But last night I talked to them for literally 12 hours. I talked to them until 4 in the morning, and I was forced to leave because my cousin had to go lay down with his son in order to have him fall asleep for good, because he had fallen asleep before, obviously, but he had to lay down in order for him to stay asleep. So I talked with them for a large period of time, and we talked about everything. You know, I see my cousins so seldomly, so whenever we do talk, we talk about everything. We talk about the good, we talk about the bad, we talk about everything in between. We talked about what we like about America, what we can fix about America, what we can do about the things that we do, the fact that the power has been returned to our hands. Like whenever Kony 2012 got President Obama to send troops to Uganda, and we manually used our tax dollars for the first time in our entire lives, something that gets taken away from us involuntarily, and we manually used our tax dollars, and we said we want them to be used for this purpose because we consider it wrong. And it was the first time that the U.S. government has ever really listened to the people since the Constitution was signed. And it was an amazing moment in history, and more and more and more, the power is being returned to our hands. That big oil spill incident that happened in that neighborhood where there was like oil running down the side of the street, the oil companies paid off every single person that was covering that could have covered the incident. So there wasn't a blip on the news, on Fox, on the media, on the radio. There wasn't a blip in any newspaper all around the world. But I found out about it anyways, because there was 4 videos on YouTube. Not just 4 videos, 4 of the most viewed videos on YouTube. Whenever that factory exploded, I didn't hear about it in the news. I heard about it because people had caught it on YouTube. And I heard about the Boston bombing before any news source told me about it, because people were already tweeting about it. They tweeted about it, and they were spreading the information of the incident before a news team could come in. We don't need the media to tell us how to live our lives anymore. And we were excited about that, so we spoke about that. But one of the major things that we began talking about was debt, and how we live in this indebted society. But we don't have to. And this is strange, because we just don't understand that we really don't have to live in this indebted society anymore. Life is a game, and you can win it or you can lose it. And it always seems credible. It always seems incredible whenever you're playing a game like checkers, and somebody does one of those moves where they jump like 15 of your little checkers people, and then like they bounce off of the other end of the board, and they can start going the opposite direction, and then they jump 15 more of your people, and then they wipe you out in one move, and you're like, what the hell was that? Well, they were just playing by the rule. If they've got subsequent jumps, they can keep making subsequent jumps until finally they've taken out nearly every single person that you have on the damn chessboard. And is it your fault? Is it their fault? Are they cheating? No, they just know the rules better than you do. They were able to make that play. And that's the way life goes. You know, we think that big companies are really bad because they get money back on taxes instead of having to pay taxes, which is what every single other every single other like small company, small business, stuff like that. Small businesses are paying out the ass. We're getting a lot more withheld than we need to. And tax assessors can tell you, the people who are like experts in taxes can tell you that most people are throwing away 50% of their tax return every single year because they're not filing their taxes correctly. A friend of mine just got $5,000 back on his taxes, whenever in all of the previous years before he actually contacted a tax specialist, on all of the previous years he was getting about $1,000 back on his taxes. So he's quintupled his return on taxes. And it's because he knew the rules of the game better, or at least he found somebody that could explain the rules to him. And that's the type of thing you really need to learn the rules of the game that you're playing, so that you can play it to the best of your ability. The big companies that get money back on taxes just know the rules of the game better than you do. That's just the way that the cookie is crumbled. They use Google correctly. I mean, you have all this information at your fingertips. You're watching me on some sort of device right now, and you're probably, unless you downloaded this video for some reason, you probably are connected to the internet. You can learn these things. You can go on some tax website, and you don't have to pay for some course or something like that. All you have to do is Google it and go through and start finding these little separate pieces of information and putting it all together yourself. Within about 10 hours or so of rooting around with tax information, you'll be able to understand the system just as much as that designated tax expert does, and maybe you can get $5,000 back on your taxes. Not a bad return for 10 hours of work. Those types of things, they're really important. It's the fact that you don't know all the rules of the game, and that's why you're playing it the way that you do. So we were talking about, like, how we live in this dead society. My house is $47,500, and it's being foreclosed upon. And I'm having to move out of my house, and so my most likely direction is going into the Dancing Rabbit Eco Village in Rutledge, Missouri. And that's what I'm going to try to aim for. If not, I have a couple of backup plans, I have a couple backup options, but I would really like to go to there because I can get out of the debt system entirely. I can literally opt out of the system that we all have. All the rest of us are on this system, but I can opt out of it. I have that option, and you do too. If you search for a similar eco-village to your area, you also have the option of opting out of the system that is in place. Like I said, I have a $47,500 house, and it's being foreclosed upon. And I have been paying $500 for a month for the mortgage for the past 2 years since I left the military. My mother was paying for 7 years of it before that, so we paid about 9 years of it. That's 6,000 times 9, because it's $500 a month times 12, which is 6,000 times 9. In 9 years, what we've managed to do is pay $57,000 towards this house. If I'm doing my math right. I could be doing my math a little bit wrong. Maybe it's $54,000 a year, something like that, but we've already paid off the house. If there was no such thing as the interest rates, our house would be paid off. And there's no interest rate in the world that's this extreme. And if we continue to pay for the entire 30-year loan, we'd be paying $180,000 for this house. Now that's kind of messed up. Why would we pay, literally, almost 4 times the amount of what this house is worth just because that's the option that's been presented to us? If you learn the rules, then you can do it in a different way. And what you have to ask yourself, what you have to ask yourself, because I've already done it, what you are going to have to ask yourself is, why do you play this game the way that you do? Say you're playing like a video game, and you decide that you're going to play it a certain way. I'll give you a better example, like an actual example. A friend of mine was going to write an FAQ on GameFAQs.com, which is like a game guide for video games. And what he did was he was going to write an FAQ for a Koei game. He was going to write an FAQ for a Dynasty Warriors game. And while he was researching other people's FAQs to learn how to write it, that's whenever he came across the fact that there were other buttons than the ones that he had been pushing. He had beat the game inside and out, but he had never pressed the triangle button. This was on the PlayStation 2. And so he went through the entire game pressing only one of the buttons that he can press. He hadn't used his arrows with the top keys, he hadn't called a horse or done anything that was available to do with that particular video game. And so he'd gone through the entire video game doing it harder than he had to. It was a lot harder than the way he had to do it. And I know a lot of people that will play through a game and they will say, well, I'm not going to use this, or I'm not going to use that, and it makes the game a lot harder and everything, and that's exactly what people are doing whenever they just submit to the debt-based society. That's what we're all doing. We're submitting to it. You buy the house, right? And it's like a $40,000 house. You end up paying $160,000 for it over the course of 30 years of your life. But then it falls apart in 10 years. Or you pour so much money into repairs in the house and everything, you end up spending like $240,000 whenever you actually add it all up. If you're keeping track of how much money that you're using on the house and everything, you realize that this is a huge debt. This is not a very good thing in any way, shape, or form. And there's lots of little traps like that. Couponing, people using coupons, couponing can only reduce an object's price down to what they can sell the project, the thing that they're trying to sell. What can they sell that and still make a profit? What price is that? How low can they go and still make a profit? That's all couponing can do. That's all it is. So if that's all it is, then we shouldn't be wasting money couponing. We should be trying to find the cheapest way to obtain the goods without having to waste our time with the games that have been set up for us. These are just additional rules that you have to follow to coupon correctly. Even the extreme couponers end up working 60 hours a week, and they don't get paid even minimum wage whenever you actually look at their dollars per hour that they're making. Then they turn out to be in poor health, and in a country that doesn't have free health care like ours here in America, fellow Americans, they end up paying a lot more than they think they do. So they end up working for less than $1 an hour once you factor all those other factors in. So extreme couponers, sorry, not a lot of you are as successful as you make yourself out to be. So there's all these other little traps. You can't put money in a savings account and have it make more money than what inflation will take away each year. Inflation will take away more money than you make every time. If you think that it's not going to take more money than you make every time, then you're dumb. Look up the information. I'm serious. No matter how smart you think you are, no matter how smart of an investor you think you are and everything, and you've got this crazy rates and everything and this online-only bank and stuff like that, you can't put away money and end up making more money than what is going to be taken away by inflation. If you put money in the bank, you are losing money. Every time that you try to save money, you're losing money. And every time that you spend money, you're losing money. And using money loses money. I'm telling you, the game is rigged. But if you know the rules correctly, you don't have to do what you need to do. So with all of those people that are playing the game in a way that makes it more difficult to play the game, but it doesn't add to the enjoyment, it doesn't add to the challenge or anything, it just makes it more difficult. It makes it unnecessarily hard. With all the people that are doing that, are you doing that as well? And that's the question that you need to ask. Why are you submitting to this culture? Why are you doing the things that you're doing right now? Why are you following the recipe of failure? Why are you paying for college loans that you're going to be indebted to for the rest of your life to get a degree where it's nearly impossible to find a job that actually will pay off your students' loans? Why are you buying a house and paying for it for 40 years or 30 years whenever it's going to fall apart in 10? Why are you buying a fixer-up for $40,000 and then pouring $60,000 additional into fixing up the home instead of buying the $80,000 house that doesn't need any repairs? Why are you buying a car that's only going to last you 5 years and then paying it off in 5 years just to have to buy another car and start paying on it again? Why are you doing the things that you're doing? What are you actually getting out of this? And is it really worth it? Remember that your life is bigger than you. It includes your family, your children, and the future generations. The actions that you take now will echo on into eternity quite literally. And so, Why are you doing the things that you do? Is it worth the sacrifices that you're paying? Is it worth the sacrifices that your family is paying? What about all the people that you rely on, that you borrow money from, that you borrow time, money, and energy from? Is it worth all of their time, money, and energy? Is it worth all of the sacrifices that are being made for you to do what you are doing? Is it worth it really? Is it actually worth it? And that's the question that you need to ask yourself, that you need to really drill down and ask yourself that very simple question. Is it worth it to play the game the way that I've been playing? Because if not, there are, in fact, alternatives. Like I said, I'm going to try my damnedest to get into the Dancing Rabbit Eco Village at Rutledge, Missouri, where they live on $3,000 a year as members of Dancing Rabbit. And so, therefore, if you have a regular $30,000 a year job, then you can save $27,000 a year. And instead of paying for a $30,000 house in 30 years, you can buy it with cash in 1 year. That puts you 29 years ahead of every single person that you know. I can go down there, and there are cars that are designed to run for like 30 or 50 years. They were dismantled. They were put out of service. You have to search to find these particular vehicles. But they exist because all the other cars are designed to fail. If there's a certain term for it, there's a certain product degradation that happens where as soon as the next model comes out, the last model starts having a lot of problems, and then you have to go on to the next model. And that's the way a lot of product companies do it. The companies that have the most the most like media attention, everything, the most commercials and stuff like that, they're not going to have the cars that last for 30 years. But you can find them. You got to search for them. You have the internet and the power. You have the power of the entire world with the internet in your hands right now, people. You are looking at me. You are listening to me on some sort of device that can access the internet. Start searching today, because you have other options than what you have been accepting your entire life. Why are you doing all the things that you're doing? Why are you accepting the same punishment that everybody else is accepting? Are you jumping off of this very same bridge that everybody else is jumping off of? Simply because everybody else is jumping off of the bridge. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? You can go out there. You can buy a mobile manufactured home for $20,000, and I can buy a shipping container for $2,000. Same size, 1/10 the price, because I'll be going somewhere where they have no building codes. And so I will be 10 years ahead of you, 30 years ahead of you, something like that. That's the power that I am going to have. And just thinking about it makes me feel like Raiden from Mortal Kombat or something, with lightning coming out of my fingers, because I'm going to be so far ahead of everybody else. So why are you choosing not to do this as well? What are you actually getting out of it? And is it worth it in the long run? Is it worth the price that you're paying for it, and everybody that you know are paying for it, the price that your kids are paying for it, or the price that your kids will pay for it? Or is it worth the fact that you're not going to be able to afford your child's college education, and so they're going to have to go into the military and risk death, and you have to wait there and see whether or not your kid makes it through their military experience just so they can go to college and have a chance in the world? Is it worth what you're doing to get the results that you're getting? Is it worth what you are putting into it, all your friends and family are putting into it, and is it worth the impact on the future generation? Is what you are doing worth the effort that you're putting into it? Because I can almost guarantee that it's not. Staying in debt for the entire life is maybe something that human beings here in America have had to deal with, but we don't have to anymore. Search. find an eco-village near you that is like Dancing Rabbit, and that is just one of the many ways that you can do this. I have plenty of people that I was with in the Navy who decided to live in a third world country. And so they took their post 9/11 GI Bill that they got, and then they moved over to a third world country where their cost of living was like $100 a month. And so they had $1,100 to play with. And so they ordered stuff on Amazon.com and stuff like that, because they didn't have access to all the stuff here in America, but they can still order it off of the internet and stuff like that. They still have high-speed internet over there. And so there's lots of little things that you can do. There's lots of ways that you can escape. So why are you not doing them? Really ask yourself that question this time. Don't ignore me. Don't ignore this. Ask yourself the question why you are doing the things that you are doing, because you are subjecting yourself to a punishment which may in fact be unnecessary. Do you really want to do it? Do you really want to buy a house and pay it off in 30 years, whenever it's going to fall apart in 15 anyways, and you're going to take a $30,000 house and invest $250,000 into it, and be poor and not be able to pay for your child's education, and so they have to go into the military and risk death just because they want to take college classes and get ahead in life and maybe have a chance? Are you really, is that worth all of that? Is that worth all of that punishment, what you are doing? Is it worth the punishment to you, to your family, to the future generations? Is what you're doing actually worth all of that? Or is it time to try to find a different way? Instead of paying for a car for 5 years, every 5 years, and staying in debt your entire life, and making minimum wage even whenever you're making $20 an hour, because so much is getting taken out for taxes, for all the different debts that you're under and stuff like that. Is it really worth that? Or should you try to find an alternative? I suggest to you that you ask yourself these questions, and then you begin researching the alternatives for you, because maybe one of these alternatives will work. Maybe you can just skip town and go to a country where the cost of living is a little bit lower than what you're used to. Maybe it won't hurt as bad as you think it will. Maybe even though your friends and family will make fun of you, maybe it'll be worth it in the long run for your future children and the future generation. Just maybe. And maybe you'll come out 60 years ahead of every single person that you know. Maybe. Take it into consideration. Sorry that this video was so long and everything, but I wanted to get it out there and everything. And I'm sorry that my cat was at my feet, meowing at me the entire time. As you can see, I will see you in the next video.